we live?
Dun dun dun. Yes, we are now live.
We are now live.
We are now live. It's the after party. Oh, after party with Ali and Mr. Sheikh here.
Why do you get a mister? I don't get a mister.
It's true. Ali was in the neighborhood, thought he would just stumble upon me in my post-session singing. I was really wailing it on the microphone after we closed up shop for our session there. And we just decided to dive in. We had this intention, I've been having this intention for a while to start this podcast. Hopefully we'll get better video soon. But Ali and I, every time we come together, we end up having these epic chats about all kinds of things. And today we were chatting more about this recent fast that Ali's dived into.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty dope. We had the purification conversation last week, which was pretty good. It was really nice to hear from Katie, actually.
Yeah, definitely. I'll tell you this. Although nothing really triggering was said during that hour and a half conversation that you guys had, I felt a lot of shit come up, and I'm just like, why am I feeling this,
Oh, I love food. I love food. These assholes, they do not eat food.
Let me indulge.
Freaking breatharians. Oh, gosh. Yeah, no, I could see that.
Yeah.
I could totally see that. I mean, it's why, it's kind of like this whole coronavirus thing right now. I'm saying it like it's like this thing we don't know about. Like, that things are happening right now. So when we talk about coronavirus, it's kind of one of those topics that's very triggering for people. So it's also going to be the topic that brings in the most external sources of safety. Because anything that causes a lot of energy is going to basically pull, is going to ask for people, or it's going to force people into wanting to find safety in things,
right,
to save them from their discomfort. So this is where you see like the endless scientific research or studies or articles or the fact checking. I saw something today, it was hilarious. He's like, I'm kind of done with the term fact checking. Because it's like, well, where are you fact checking this from?
Right.
But it's that idea that like with similar to a topic like nutrition, it's this it's this idea of it's something that's very triggering, brings up a lot of emotion. So people need like millions of different studies and information about. Right. Again, open head center, so needing the answers and stuff, but mainly to find comfort. Like, oh, this scientific study says you need this protein, and this says you can eat meat. This one says you can eat meat. This one says you shouldn't eat fruit. This one says you should eat fruit. It's like endless every direction. But it's again one of those topics that because people are feeling so much emotion, they need something external to hold to as a dogma to protect them from their lack of safety, lack of feeling of emotion, whatever. So I've noticed that a lot with any valid aspect of any path, in the topic of God is maybe even bigger than all of that. You know what I mean? The topic of God creates wars upon wars because, again, it's something that brings up so much intensity because it's the closest thing to home, and then like the earth, like climate change, all these topics, they're all these triggering topics. But if we look at them as topics that really are important for us to like find practical action in some form, kind of like, when you felt like, okay, your body's telling you to fast, like you said a couple of days ago, you have this stuff coming, your body's healing, body's saying fast, and then you're trying to ask questions or find rationalizations as to why you should or shouldn't do it,
Right.
But that's generally when we know it's a call into action,
right?
Because the action is where all the goods are going to get. Like, it's where all the safety is going to be found. You know what I mean? Because instead of looking for the safety in studies and science says this and peer review says this and daddy government says this and like all of that, right? Instead of all of that being the reason why you believe in something, it's like you don't even care about belief. You care about knowing.
Yes, 100%. Because if you don't have that knowing, then really...
Sorry. Just had to do a mic drop there. I gotta pull that out in one of our like serious, meditation sessions. Right. We're like meditating, and then I just see like a quote come out. We're gonna put it on some Instagram post, and it's like You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off. I just want to mention to everyone, I didn't put the title of this, which is gonna be was gonna be the after party, the Wednesday night after party.
Pretty much,
with Ali. It wasn't planned because Ali, I didn't know Ali was around the corner.
I just
showed up.
Just showed up, paraded him.
Showed up at Peace Room. Shout outs to Peace Room.
Mid singing.
Yeah, and so
mid chorus singing.
I'm just gonna say hello if you're here with us. I'm just gonna go and see who's on. Oh, there's a bunch of people on.
Oh, cool.
But you were gonna say something, I think.
Oh, that. What were you saying? You were saying about the knowing. So the thing with not having that knowing, that sense of knowing, and not having experienced that sense of knowing, is that you're looking for beliefs and you're just looking for confirmation bias. True. Right? Oh, I love meat, so all the studies I'm going to see. Because there's endless studies on everything. True. Right? That carnivore is the good diet and veganism is the good diet. So it's like everybody's so confused as to like what the right answer is, especially when it comes to nutrition, because it's such an emotional topic. Whereas if you have a reference point and you've tasted what a sense of knowing is like, then everything else goes out the window, you know? Like, correct. You don't need to research, you don't need to, you know? Like, I recognized the moment that I knew, like, I should fast, and then the rational mind came in, looking for research and looking for questions and looking for answers.
Where is the peer-reviewed study?
Yes.
Where are the 50 other people that have been put in one room to do this? Yeah. I'm kidding. They're going to hate me for this. But yeah, I totally understand what you mean.
Yeah. And then I was just like, just trust it. I already had that sense, like, fast, right? It's not like the idea came to me out of nowhere. I know that you fast. I know that a couple of my friends fast, and you hearing about just hearing about them and their benefits. I woke up knowing that this excruciating pain that I have, that fasting might work. So.
And now you're seeing that it does.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. So for all y'all out there, the group's going to start soon where we're going to actually have the group ready for people to be supported who are walking that path. I mean, the one thing that I'm reiterating, that it's not just the food thing, and that's why, like, you know, you've been doing the Tai Chi, the meditations, all the stuff, then the fasting becomes more effortless and a natural byproduct, because you're already releasing the density in the body, the energy in the body that's holding these physical toxicity and issues and all that stuff in place. It's like the term I've used before, right? Like crystallized. Like to crystallize something is to like basically like create it out of nothing. So your thoughts create energies in the body, emotions, let's say, and then as those thoughts keep running and creating those emotions, it almost crystallizes that emotion, so that emotion is like there in you now. It's like, you know, so when you think of this person or you think of this situation, that energy arises because you put so much time into like literally creating that energy, you know, like it's like a little ball of fun. And then inevitably that ends up as a physical manifestation. There's like a physical disease or an issue in the organs, you know, the anger in the liver or the kidneys are blocked. It's filled with all this grief, all that, you know, these areas in the body just get all filled up. And then they manifest as, physical issues, or as like issues in your reality, which are even harder to decipher. It's kind of like with people, you know, I mean, myself, all of us, you know, when we have dreams, I don't really experience this anymore. And I see this actually as my own scientific research on my own journey of the less confusing my dreams have gotten, or the more I could clearly understand what the symbology was telling me, the more that I know that there's alignment. Because a lot of times people have like crazy nightmares or dreams that they have no idea what they mean. It's because in their walking reality, they're not seeing the symbols and the metaphors and the things that are happening in their reality that are telling them this or that, or this direction or that direction, or this person, you know, everything, endless things, you know?
Wow, yeah, very true.
So then you go into the dream world where the malleability of creation is even more wide. Then this just basically reveals that you're going to even have a harder time deciphering shit, because, you know, stuff's going to be insane, like all over the place, things happening out of nowhere, and you're going to have no way. And that's kind of the whole idea of like how like you see this now with the conspiracy thing, how, heavy conspiracy theorists basically think like everything is related to the conspiracy, like there's somehow like everything, there's no coincidences anywhere, right?
Right.
And that's reflected in the spiritual community through the term synchronicity, seeing numbers, like we all have experienced these types of people. We've been them maybe. But what we're looking at really is that anyone who's coming into a deeper interconnection within themselves to see that everything is just a projection of consciousness, you cannot see coincidences because you recognize everything is interconnected. However, it doesn't mean the coincidences that your mind thinks are this, or the synchronicities that your mind thinks mean this. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's the truth. That's the difference.
Right.
So it's like, yes, there is no coincidence. Everything is interrelated.
What they mean is...
That's somewhat up for question. And the majority of the time, the way I've looked at it, is if the meaning has some sort of real intense emotional charge to it, like you get really excited or really fearful, it's probably not either of those things. It's probably like somewhere in the balance.
Right.
So yeah, because that's the missing link for someone whose life is just not connected in any way, or they don't see any connection in any way. Then of course, like going back to the peer reviewed thing, they need something external to tell them some objectified truth, because they have no way of coming to an objectified truth within themselves.
Right.
There's such a lost nature,
right. Yeah.
So it's not to say science is incorrect, but like the whole like peer reviewed idea of science to me is just the idea that every year science is proving something new. Correct? So every year we're coming out with new findings about reality and the universe. So how in the world could we be so ignorant to think that just because a scientific study has not said something, it doesn't exist, when every day of the fucking week we're being shown that? You know what I mean? Like every day there's a new scientific study saying, oh, now it's this, oh, now it's that, oh, now it's this. So the whole peer-reviewed idea to me, if it's not coming with any sort of balance of the fact that there is a potential other reality than what the peer-reviewed thing says, it doesn't mean that peer-reviewed is not nice or science is not a good thing. It just means that it's not the whole picture.
Right.
Right? It's not the whole picture. So I don't even get into the conversation with people anymore, because it's like it's so difficult. I mean, it's not difficult to understand why they think this way, because it's just an indoctrination.
Right.
But it is quite funny.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I gotta say that,
It is.
So yeah,
it's just like, sometimes I'm just like, okay, like I'm just like, okay, sure. Like I just disengage, and I'm just like, think whatever you want to think. Yeah. It's just the attachment to like certain beliefs and certain things is so like deep, and to the point where I question, how do you know this? Like
I was gonna say, like sometimes I even question myself.
Right.
I'm like, damn, they're so on point. They're
so sure.
Yeah. They are literally so sure about this right now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it goes back to valuing direct experience, right? In this age of information that we're in, people are looking for the answer rather than looking for the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a good point. I'm gonna check. Sorry, I'm distracted by my phone, but I want to see who else is here. If you are here, say hello. We may just be alone. I know Colin was saying, Kelsey was there.
Oh, Colin was on too?
Colin Malone.
What up?
Say hello if you're here. I don't know who's watching. I don't even know if we're still... I think we're still live. But, yeah, I mean, overall, yeah, not to harp on, like, peer-reviewed people or, scientific community. But, again, it's just a product of, like, just, yeah, indoctrination and the kind of illusion of certainty of the mind, and because even within our own experience of direct experience, naturally direct experience is also still evolving and changing. So even if we have had a direct experience, that's in essence how one would get caught up in trauma. If you get caught up in trauma, it's because there's a belief that your direct experience of the past is more real than the present. It's more real than the moment, and that's just getting caught up in the movements and the illusions of mind, which are constantly circulating if we're not bringing ourselves back. Right. I mean, that's much of what we just went in today's session, where the idea of the third eye, like having visions in your third eye, trying to manifest something, for the most part, is so in so many ways out of sequence for the majority. And I'm speaking from my own experience, because to manifest some vision of something in the past means that there isn't an awareness as to what the current vision of the present experience is now. And
what do you mean by that? Like,
well, the third eye is constantly, like when you have a balanced energy in the third eye and the rest of your energies are in a certain balance as well, there's going to be a very kind of natural and very easeful opening of the third eye that's going to be tuned to the higher order, the higher the higher energies, the higher dimensions, and which is in a sense translating all of the information that's coming down and moving through. So that's happening in real time constantly. And when it's kind of like when you start experiencing synchronicity or things, you'll start to also experience like psychic vision or telepathy with somebody, or these types of things. It's because all of that is basically happening in the same place the majority of the time in the pineal gland and in different areas of the body, but that's a main area. And so, you're going to start opening up to all these different abilities. But these abilities in themselves are not really that useful outside of them being like a part of your practical moment-to-moment reality. And really, they only do actually get consistently accessed once you have a certain consistency in the flow of your natural walking life. Like when you feel like there's a natural alignment occurring. Because to get caught up, let's say in a psychic vision, you can get caught up in a psychic vision all day. And then inevitably, because you're caught up in that psychic vision, that's actually changing the outcome of the psychic vision that you've had.
Oh, wow.
Right? You've just now changed the timeline because you're so attached to that vision. And that happens for those who are too fixated on like head-centric, and that like head-centric awakening is like the psychedelic awakening. That's what I was mentioning.
Right.
Opening third eye, opening all the abilities, opening the endless knowledge. When many times these things are blinding you from the beauty of the walking moment-to-moment life.
True.
Like of just like looking at a fucking bird and be like, oh my goodness, this is the most amazing bird.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So what I was getting at with that is like, when you have a natural flow, it's not even really about like manifesting your vision. It's like you are the vision, and you're in real time creating the vision. Like everything that you do is creating your vision. You don't even have to think about your vision because the channel is already open. You're a manifestation of your higher self in your physical body.
Wow.
Like that's literally what I'm kind of pointing at with everything we've been doing over the past while. But yeah, that's as simple as it gets.
To go back to the trauma thing that you were saying.
Yeah.
So how is the trauma related to that third eye and like holding to and that holding of it?
Well, when energy flows into the body, it wants to flow like a river, Like it wants to flow like a river. So if we look at all the traumas in the body as like a bunch of rocks, and we have too many rocks, that water cannot flow as effortlessly. It can still flow. It's water. It's going to do its thing. It's going to find a way around it. But it's not going to be, it's going to get dammed up in certain areas.
Right. It's not going to be as smooth.
Yeah. It's going to maybe make more of a river on this side. It's going to go off the path a little bit, but it's still part of the river. But it's just kind of making it a little bit weird. And that's in essence what it is. Like when you have traumas and certain things held there, the insights and the energies and things that you may be downloading or having epiphanies about, if one's having trouble like manifesting these things or getting too caught up, like we said, like too caught up in the synchronicities, like everything's a synchronicity,
right,
and then it's like you're living in a dream. You're living in a world where because all of these things are happening, you believe that maybe there's no action required. Or you don't have to follow. You don't have to follow through in basic day-to-day things, or you don't have to take care of responsibilities or what have you. That's how disconnect can occur, and that's because there's traumas in the body that energy cannot move through. So it literally creates, it's just blinders. So there may be an awareness of enlightened states or peak abilities or all that, but again, the body is still having trouble assimilating those energies. So you'll tend to find that if maybe you are this person, or you've been this person, or you've noticed people being like this, they go through very intense highs and very intense lows. It's very extreme.
Yes.
Right? Because inevitably you will have to come and face those rocks, you have to go down and actually move them.
Right.
And not necessarily move them. Well, yeah, you're kind of moving them. You know, it's like there's different ways to do it, obviously.
Right.
But it's real work, and you know, that's much of the method that we've used, that emotional healing method, which is on the website. You know, it's a method that, in my view, has supported me in healing so many layers of that, because it really comes down to the same thing. It comes down to awareness, attention, focused attention, willingness to feel, right? A direct willingness to feel and experience, and then a little bit of artistry and mastery with energy work.
Right.
That's what it ends up coming into. Because then
and that element comes with time. Or
yeah, time and practice.
Okay.
You know, like it gets very, very detailed. You know, when you start to deal with certain things and all types of different energy workings, it's like a surgeon would, like a surgeon trying to do surgery on a physical body.
Right.
You know, some of us have the ability more than others to be able to do that within ourselves or with others.
And that depends on?
Just natural gifts, I would say. Okay. Natural abilities. We all have different abilities, and in a sense, they're all going to guide us back home. But you know, that's why we have each other, because we can learn from each other in different ways. But I do believe we all, in the end, will have what we need.
Right.
Like, we'll just put it like that.
Yeah.
You may not be like the most beautiful painter, but maybe you can paint, and then you paint one painting one day, and you feel amazing because you painted that, and it was a great healing. Like, it's like what we just went into with the voice. You don't have to be a great singer to be a sound healer. Right. You know what I mean? Like, you go listen to a shaman singing Icaros. He's not like gonna be on top 40. You know what I mean? Like that just doesn't sound that great, but like it does, because you feel the heart. You feel like the energy of that. And so yeah, that's some good points there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny on the synchronicities thing. Like well, it's not the synchronicities. It's really anything. Sometimes you can get caught up in them as well. You know, whatever your tool is, or whatever the thing that you're focused on, it can end up using you. Right? Where, like, as you would say, you don't notice the garbage on the floor. And yeah, I mean, that's yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that's a fucking good point.
It sure is. I'm gonna check the chat, because I'm gonna check my phone and see who's here. Maybe we're just alone, but I did see people. Melissa, what am I watching? I don't know. I wish I did title this, because it would have been titled The After Party. Yeah. But hilarious. Well, who else is here? Say hello. It's 5 of you. If you're just coming on, yeah, we just decided Ali was in the neighborhood, and after we just did the meditation tonight, which was quite potent, we usually get in these great conversations, so we thought, well, why don't we just start our podcast vibe early and do some after party vibes and just have a conversation. And we just went through a lot of really amazing topics that I would recommend rewatching if you're coming in late. Topics like fasting, topics like coronavirus, peer-reviewed yuppies. You know, well, and the funny thing is, we talk about them, and then we equally talk about the spiritual hippies running around, right, screaming synchronicity at everything. You know?
Yeah. Everything is synchronicity.
Yeah, and it is in a certain sense, but you know, I just like to. There's always something to laugh about when it comes to extremes.
For sure. I mean, that's the beauty of the natural state, right? Is when you really get in touch with that natural state, it's that state of bliss and peace, and
common sense.
Yeah, more importantly, common sense, like non-duality. Like, you just see the extreme of this side and the extreme of that side, and you're just like,
all right. I'm gonna just sit here. Yeah. Get my popcorn. If you're fasting, we got our grape juice or something, you know, watermelon juice. I posted that thing on watermelon juice. Man, watermelon is one of the. If anyone ever tells me it's, you know, you can't fast, can't do a juice fast, it's too expensive, the only recommendation they need is watermelon and lemon. You could do like $5. You get at least like 3 or 4 liters, you know, which will, I mean, probably won't last you a day, but $4, $5 a day for some decent juice to cleanse you out.
Is there a difference really with the types of fasting?
I mean, juice and water are going to be similar. I don't necessarily love water because we live in a world that's highly toxic already.
Right.
And water isn't like it, like in all ancient traditions or in like the Bible, whatever, it's all about water fasting, you know?
Mm.
And in a certain sense, there is a power to it because I can see that even the taste needs to be fasted.
Right.
You know, like juice tastes good.
Yeah.
So, and then there's nutrients in there and things like that. So water fasting is kind of like, it's the last level before dry fast or breatharian pranic living because, you know, you have nothing. You have water.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there is that, but because like the majority of people's bodies are so damaged, it isn't as recommended, and I personally don't think it's even that much better for the hell that you're gonna go through, kind of thing. You know what
I mean, I thought of it as like, well, juice is just more fun. Like I'm still giving my digestive tract a break.
Exactly, and that's the thing. I mean, in my experience, like the last 40 day, I mean, the last 40 day was. You know, endless. Like I put the video. People haven't seen the video. 14 feet almost of mucoid plaque coming out, right? So clearly, it didn't slow anything down. It was a very fast fast, and so yeah. So I mean, the more advanced systems that I've seen and I've experienced myself that regard with fasting and like high level detox, it's still going to be juice in some form. And so in my experience, cooked grape juice is probably the most potent.
Right.
You know, that comes from the master fast system. Most people are not down with the cooked. I do a balance of both. I feel really good with like raw juices, but when you take the cooked grape juice, like you're ripping shit out. Like stuff's coming out of you. Like yeah, it's pretty intense, especially when you're in the deeper layers. And it's still pretty. It's not like you're killing yourself. It depends what layer you're at. I speak of it lightly because I mean. Fasting isn't difficult anymore, really.
Right. And I think really it isn't difficult. It's the mind that makes it difficult.
I agree. Yeah. Well, it is and it isn't, right? Because if you're in a really toxic body,
right,
you're gonna have a lot of toxic stuff come out, and so that's why you have to use all the tools. You know, like the enemas, get sweating, get moving every day. Enemas are really good. The one.
What's enema?
Enema is when you put the tube up your butt and you put the water in and you clean out that way.
Lovely.
That's actually probably one of the most vital things as soon as you go into a longer juice fast.
Oh, really? Okay.
Or water. Anything over like 7 days. Yeah, it's almost absolutely necessary.
Okay.
Because so much toxicity is coming out, you need to get you need something to help get it out. So it's not building up.
Okay.
So yeah, the cooked grape juice. Then second from that, in my opinion, is orange juice. Orange juice is going to be like pure, like good orange juice, raw orange juice. That's going to really clean you out. Watermelon is also really good. Watermelon and lemon. I mean, lemon, watermelon, orange, grape. Any of those, you're gonna be set. For at least like real detox, right? But like detox it's like bulking and cutting, like we've talked about in the weightlifting industry. You know, you go through periods where you're cutting, periods where you're bulking. In the detox space, it's kind of similar. However, what I found, at least what I'm coming to now over the many years, is there is kind of like a balance of it just being what you do all the time, kind of thing. You know, like you just.
What do you mean? Like you fast all the time?
Yeah, like whether it's an intermittent fast or you're just eating fruits most of the time, or maybe you're just juicing and it's nothing. Like, I mean, I was meditating on this recently about pretty much every aspect of the path of awakening, of alignment, of coming back to yourself, personal growth, every possible topic when it comes to like the ascension of the human body, and the soul and the existence is you basically want to practice things to the point in which they get to a balance where they aren't a big deal. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like, oh, I'm going on this huge fast and like here I go. You know what I mean? Like, you know. And of course that's part of it. There's nothing wrong with this. We see this endlessly on social media. Yeah. But the reality is where we've actually integrated something is where things are just no longer a big deal. You know, it's not a big deal that I meditate. It's not a big deal that I fast. It's not a big deal that I'm a nice person. It's not a big deal that you know what I mean? Because that's really what it comes back to. And it sounds so silly whenever we right. It's just because it's like, oh, it's personal growth. So
yeah, and you fall in love with the tool too, right?
Yeah.
That's really what it's come down for me is that like I upped my meditation from 20 minutes to an hour, and I was just like, why haven't I been doing this all the time? Like there was that classic meme of the businessman who's like, oh, I meditate 20 minutes a day and I feel like I can take over the world. And then there's a monk on the side, and then the monk is like, if you meditate an hour, you won't feel like you need to.
Interesting. Yeah.
Right. So
that's actually so that's like the meme of personal growth.
Right.
It's so funny. Oh my gosh. So good. It should be Tony Robbins' face.
Right. And then Sadhguru on the side.
Something like that. I'm just poking, but yeah. But I get your point. That's a good point.
Yeah. So as soon as I got into the 1 hour, right, and I'll say this: when I read that meme, I really didn't get it, to be honest with you. Like, it didn't click. What do you mean you won't need to? Right? Like, you're still part of the world. What are you doing, monk? Like, I'm not gonna be in a cave, right? That was my initial thought. But it's more that you can take over the world, but you won't need to. Like, you can take on the world, but you won't. It won't come from this place of neediness, right? Like, if I were to sum up how 20 minutes of meditation was versus an hour meditation is that the 20 minutes gave me focus and calmness, obviously, but focus and alertness, and just this ease that I'm like, I can roll with the punches a bit. And an hour gave me, those on steroids, right? The alertness and the ability to roll with the punches, but also it gave me this this feeling of wholeness, this feeling of okay, I can't train jiu-jitsu now, but that's okay. Like, I'm still loving life the same way. I'm still I'm no longer waiting for the quarantine to be over.
Sure, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So it's because I got in touch with that place that is like whole, right? That is like peace or whatever. But again, as well, I fell in love with that. But as well as I recognized that I fell in love with it, I started to step back from it.
Sure, yeah.
Almost naturally. Let me see what happens if I dial it back to like 30 minutes or 45 minutes or whatever. You know, you always want to. I don't know. I always find that I want to challenge my own relationship with things, whether it is food and sex and entertainment and all that things, but even the healthy tools that are like meditation and the sound healing and so on.
Yeah. So there's no room of like any form of identification, and I mean, it's an endless process. It's just incremental. If there's an ongoing incremental approach to everything, right, then there's very little way in which that can happen, because you're aligning with nature, and nature has no identity. You know, it just moves. It's just change, and so in that sense, like, as there's an alignment with nature, then there's an alignment with the natural flow of things. So there's no there's no experience that's going to end it all, or there's no experience that's going to bring ultimate enlightenment or something like this. Like, a lot of those types of things start to dissolve, because you're just always in the moment anyways. You always have to handle the moment. So regardless of, again, if the synchronicity has come and presents you with this, or, like the situation is here and it's very threatening or whatever, there's always just a fluidity of more moments and more opportunities for further deepening and awareness and understanding. So yeah, I mean, it kind of lends itself to the whole overlaying topic of coronavirus and lockdown and quarantine right now, which is, I mean, for me, this whole thing hasn't really changed my life that much. I mean, it's certainly impacted it, but the day-to-day of my flow hasn't really shifted. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I do the same things. I'm not really off bounds on certain things. And I've noticed that with some people, and then other people I've noticed the whole degree of how it's affected certain individuals. And naturally, the more we become integrated inwardly, the less external circumstances affect us, like not just like our emotional state, but like literally affect us. Like they literally do not. It's like you're creating a new universe within a universe, and that's in essence what creating reality is that we can live on this planet, but society is an idea, like the system, society, what's normal, what's not normal. All of that are just ideas. These are ideas that are creating this box. You know, this is in essence what the Matrix documentary is. You know, it's like creating this idea of what life and existence is, but that's not what the universe is. Infinite in every direction. So because we are infinite creators and we are universal creators, naturally we live within this system, but we also live completely outside of it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We are existing on this planet at this time, so it does have this thing that we're looking at, but it doesn't mean we are to succumb to it, or we are controlled by it in any form. We choose for that to occur. We co-create with our actions, our words, and everything that we do to either agree with that or not. You know, and then collectively with many other beings, we agree with that or not. You know, and this is how we can shift reality individually and within a greater whole. But the reality is we always do have our individual reality, which will just be made up really of just what's in our mind.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if our mind is the majority of the time silent, or at least we have connected our mind to the higher mind, which is now a fluid flow, because it's not about having no thoughts. That's like a illusionary idea. Having no thoughts gives you a taste of source in a different way than having thoughts and being connected to source. It's not like because you have thoughts that you're not connected to source. It's more about where are those thoughts coming from, and are they in alignment with the natural fluidity of your experience, which means the higher mind is just your higher self. So is it your higher self that's thinking these thoughts? Right. You know, or is it the lower self that's filled with safety and security and fight or flight and trauma and, you know, these things? Generally, it's going to be kind of a merge of the two. But as we awaken and truly ascension, it doesn't mean leaving the body. It means, at least in these times, you know, it's not as much about leaving the body as it is integrating higher self, so that the higher mind is what now is the one thinking, acting, doing, living, you know. So you, in a sense, you become godlike, right? You know, and we each are that. We each can be that and remember that. And so then, from that perspective, like, you know, all these ideas about what's happening and quarantine and lockdown. I mean, we have to be mindful. I'm a believer of being mindful of laws and being mindful of just not needing to push against things too much. You know, like we don't need to make a huge ruckus. Just do what you need to do to like be in alignment with what's happening around you in your environment, while also staying true to what your truth is. And if you're in alignment with the true way, it's not going to be too far outside of what's happening, because it's not afraid of anything. So why does it need to? Right. You know what I mean? Right. It's like, it's a funny thing. But, you know, the funny thing, with that said, though, where I feel people are really getting aggravated and things are coming up is because now it's being revealed that certain systems and governments or certain groups of people that, you know, run a lot of the show, at least the system show, are not necessarily following the laws that are meant to be followed. Right? So if there's like a constitution or a main piece of literature or documentation that at least lays out the core laws of our experience as a human being on this planet, which I feel needs to be redone, but let's say the Constitution or the different things that different countries have, if now these greater powers are not abiding by that, you know, like them arresting you because you're not socially distancing, they can't actually do that, you know, like these are against certain things, then that's where it's revealed that, oh, this is now out of balance, so this has to be brought back into balance. So that's why there's, you know, the anger and all the things that arises from within people, because this is just not, it's not proper.
Well, they see the hypocrisy in a way.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Right. There's a dissonance. Like, hey, you're saying one thing, but you're doing another. Like,
hey,
it's
bro.
not.
Hey, bro. And sister. All there. But yeah, that's exactly it. So, but you know, back to the point of what I was getting at is, you want to create your life, and this is what we're now being forced in. You know, because I am still affected by things, but my physical reality has not changed that much. It's not to say it won't, but I just simply know that the more I put my energy into following my natural heart and my natural flow, what's in alignment, what's already been in alignment, what will continue to be in alignment, it will continue to put me in situations and places to create more and more structures, you know, and infrastructure around my life and around the tribe's life and the community's life, family's life, so that we're less and less and less affected by changes in the system. You know, growing your own food. That's one thing I really want to make sure is happening this year, at least in some form. You know, growing your own food, having some sort of resource exchange that's not necessarily money. That starts by just giving your gifts freely, you know, like gift economy type stuff. You know, fasting and all these things, minimalism, celibacy, all those things, that's what really actually sets you up. Right. Because if you know you don't really need food that much, or you don't need sex, or you don't need this, or you don't need that, you don't need things all the time, I mean, then life gets really simple. Yeah. You know? Yeah. So yeah. And here's, I find some people think of it as like, well, if I'm a minimalist, then I'm not a capitalist in a way, and I'm not achieving, and I'm not doing this. Well, but it's really like, who are you achieving for? That's the question. But 100%. But also that they're not two separate ideas, right? Like attaining and thriving and they don't have to be one, right? Sure. That like it's you're working hard and doing all these things or whatever, so you're attaining is not really like the opposite of reducing and like being like, well, when you reduce, you're because you're in the flow, you're really working, right? Correct, you're doing a lot. Well, the attainment question always has to come back to who is the one attaining, like who is the identity that believes that they're meant to attain something, and that's generally going to be the false identity, the false self that is in some form of societal norms and desires and conditioning and you know, from the past, from parents, from all of these things, that believes that there's something to attain. Right. But in the same light, there is attainment, but the attainment is inward, and the inward nature of returning to yourself and aligning with the awakened state, you know, attainment of higher self-embodiment. These are the true attainments we have to go for, you know, because when death comes to you, the attainments of the worldly nature are useless. Right. Right. There's nothing about them that are being taken. It's your merits. It's like it's like XP in a video game. We're cultivating XP, and the XP is love. You know, or merit, you know, merit or love, which is a cultivation. Drop the mic. yeah, that's it. It's a mic drop. But we in the after show we mic drop. In the regular meditations, we're very serious, and you know, I'm a Gemini, remember, so we got two sides to this show. But yeah, so it's like that's a key piece there. Definitely. It's I had a thought, I forgot it. Well, I will finish. Yeah, finish. And then I'll remember. The cultivation of XP is love, and that's what we're taking with us. Right. So everything has to be a product of that. Like everything is a product of love. What is coming from love? Is your money coming from love? Is your friendships coming from your love? Is your next goal you just achieved coming from love? Right. You know, is the next business you create coming from love? It has to come from that place first. And in so many ways, you know, the modern way of living, the culture, society, whatever, has had it backwards. Yeah, you know? Definitely. It's had it backwards in recognizing that enlightenment or awakening is step one. Right. Right. Like we gotta handle that first. Yes. And likely most of us are doing this for a lifetime. So you know, that's what, and it's obviously not. And then you integrate back into society, and not the other way around, right? There's the monk that sold his Ferrari or something like that. Yeah. It's because people are going one way, like and this is just my opinion on it, and it's almost because they're doing it in reverse. They got to go back to step one and handle it. Yes. Well, and that's generally what ends up happening. My pointer, and at least if I was talking to myself 10 years ago or 12 years ago when I first had certain experiences, it would have been these messages of walking the middle path, recognizing you do not need to leave the world to awaken. You can awaken at a rapid pace, especially right now, where it's so available for people and it's happening everywhere. For those to come to awaken to themselves, to the true energy of who they are, And from that, they will see how clearly this can integrate into every aspect of their reality. And it doesn't have to change anything. The world, like we talked about this recently, you know, a bridge is a bridge, and it'll always need to be made as a bridge.
Right.
So whether it's made of the worst chemicals known to man or made of the most beautiful, like, fiber, whatever, that's so amazing for the environment, it's still a bridge. Mm-hmm. What I'm pointing at here is that the structure of reality will always be the same.
Right.
So when we think like we need to create this new world of all these, it's like there's nothing ever new under the sun. We're just going to continue evolving into lighter and lighter forms, more aligned forms in which we'll, yes, restructure society. And at certain junctures, it's kind of like, it's like a frequency notes, right? When you chant notes, or anyone who knows music, to get to the next note, it's not gradual. It's a step. You know, like to go from one note to another, it can go like, but it clearly jumps.
Right.
So there are clear jumps in history that have happened, and this is one of them we're experiencing, where there are clear jumps that will occur that will be very fast, you know, and everything would seem like everything's crumbling, and that's exactly what we're experiencing right now. You know, since 2000s, but it's this very quick, right, where I was just reflecting on this today about the fact that the new generations now are so different than the oldest generation that still lives today. Right. You know, from like the early 1900s or whatever. It's like mind-blowing different, like the upbringing.
Almost different, like universe. If you were to look at, exactly. That's what I was about to say. Like
we are in
species,
a different universe.
You know,
we have moved universes. Literally different species. You're right, and it is. Yeah. They're all indigo and crystal children for the most part. So they literally are. Ollie's like, oh, well, okay.
No, I didn't know that.
I know. But yeah, they are indigo and crystal children, right? So completely new race of beings coming on this planet. So it's literally of a completely other universe. So I was just perceiving that because I made the joke recently about the fact that, like, you know, I was talking about fasting, how if we all went breatharian and activate, you know, which I'm not advocating let's all go breatharian, but if we activate the inner fountain of youth, then we reverse our aging, and, you know, we'll look like in that movie Time, where everyone looks 25. You ever seen that with Justin Timberlake? No. It's like In Time or something, and you have like this watch that gives the amount of time that you have, and it's like your money, what's your time.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of like Hunger Games. It's basically a programming tool by Hollywood. Right. The Holy Wood, remember. The Holy Wood was from Aleister Crowley.
Holy Wood?
The Holy Wood was the holy wood that the magi or the magicians carried. And they're the ones who casted the spells. Okay. That's Aleister Crowley's teachings. Very interesting man. But quite dark. But that dynamic of the Hollywood programming, those movies, is actually what we're potentially living. But, you know, we're going to make the course correct, hopefully. But anyways,
do it more in a lighter.
Yeah. So we don't have time on our thing, you know. So that time runs up, we're out of here. Yeah. Which is kind of what it is. You know, everything does have truth, but no one's there telling us what that is. You know, especially not some AI god, which is a whole other podcast or after party. Maybe it's the after party. We'll talk about the AI god, which is a very important topic in these times, actually. But
you heard about the Neuralink thing with
that's
Elon Musk?
Good example of it. Yeah. I believe AI. I'm not going to talk about it actually right now about Elon, but maybe that's again after party in private groups. So I believe I'm almost losing my train of thought because we're really going on a tangent. But to bring it back,
the time thing.
Yeah. So the time where we all look 25, right? So that's the fountain of youth, you know. So we bring the fountain of youth and we come back to ourselves. We're going to outlive these old dudes, mainly old white men. You know, there's some women, but the majority of this, you know, Illuminati secret, and they're not even secret anymore, but these varying factions and various groups are basically old white men. You know, so these are old dudes, man. So like, you know, like I'm just so not worried about that, to be honest. You know, like that. Right. That whole topic, I mean, they're doing some vicious and the most unspeakable things on this planet, and they've been doing it for a very long time. But their time is up, and so when we come to the idea of activating the fountain of youth and say living 150 years or living 200 years, imagine that's possible, which I believe it is. then, like, we'll just wait them out.
Right.
Like, it obviously doesn't work like that because it gets into, complexities of reincarnation and
for sure
how these lineages have
But if I'm understanding you correctly, that there isn't that much of a need to fight them.
No, exactly. We live the reality we know and in our hearts we'd like to create. And we do that in our walking day-to-day life, in our moment-to-moment reality, like the most practical ways. And then if we're all doing that, and then there's more and more of these children coming in and more of living us longer and more are in this place of love, it's inevitable what's going to occur with that. There's too many people right now that are awake to what's happening and all the topics and all the falsehood for any of that to even be entertained. We have to acknowledge it, and that's part of the darkness. That's part of like acknowledging one's own darkness. But like I said, time is up. AI gods. Who's still with us? We're getting into some juicy topics here.
Yeah.
See, the funniest thing with how people, well, I'm not gonna say much. I want to see how many people are here with us. Probably like 4 or 5. But we have like 4 or 5 people here. We're talking about some like next level stuff right now, but because we have like not the best camera, like we have like no title. We got Ollie in a hoodie. Yeah. We're like, it's Sheikh and Ollie. Like, who the fuck are these guys? But but I'm happy we're doing this because this is we're gonna keep going on these after parties.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my favorite sayings of all time is it's not about the action, but the sentiment that it proceeds from. Right? Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said it's not about the action, but the sentiment it proceeds from. And I love that saying so much because it really points back to what you were saying of, hey, are all your actions coming from love? Are all your actions coming from this place of like higher mind, higher self? If so, then you can afford to be in a society and whoop-de-doo, If not, then you're doing it backwards. Yeah.
That's it. I mean, it's all in balance to a certain degree. I mean, even this conversation we can have lightly, even though we're talking about some pretty intense topics. But I mean, again, the only thing that ever matters is how you experience your own self, your own body, your own mind, your own energy. Everything here is what matters. So if we take care of that, then we walk through life as a walking. I had that image of like, just like you have your hand and you just like wipe things clean. You know what I mean? Like you're just a walking cleaner. Everywhere you go, the energy is just cleaning up.
Right.
Because there's nothing outside of that can occur because it's just the way vibration works. Vibratory law like attracts it. Everything attracts to something. It's like why we're attracted to light. And it's why we drive forwards on the highway, not backwards. Like there's an attractor field. There's a magnetic pull to something, and so people could call it God or source or whatever. But as we recognize that source, that attractor energy that we've been seeking is actually within our own being, and it's not even within or without, it's just who we are. It's where everything is being revealed from. It's where everything in your walking reality is actually coming from. Then you recognize that there's nowhere to go. There's nothing to save. There's nothing to, like, everything becomes whole once again. So then that's experienced physiologically. The light in the heart starts to open. The opening in the gut starts to occur. Like, I made this big post today about the sexual energy, and we went into it for those coming in, we had our pre-party. Now it's our after party. So now we're here. And yeah, so we talked about this. We talked about the movement from the lower region, which is the sacral chakra. It's the lower dantian. It's the same. It's all different terms. That sexual energy, that creative force moves. It moves up through the heart, comes into the throat. It exits out top of the head, and it also cycles back down. Kind of a complex thing. But the reality of it is that when that energy is naturally flowing, and you're experiencing now, like you're fasting, you're feeling it more, your whole body lights up like a Christmas tree. You know what I mean? Like you literally are a walking Christmas tree, and you feel it consistently, if not almost all the time.
What was the first thing that I told you? I'm like, wee!
Oh, yeah. Yes. It's a good sound effect.
Yeah.
It's a new mantra.
That's literally how I feel after like 3 days of fasting. It's just like, because I feel this like infinite childish energy, and it's it's pretty dope.
That's it. That's exactly it, and that's, through consistent work, that's what's accessed, and it's not some fairy tale. It's not some like spiritual thing only, like, it's just normal. It's the natural state. So we come back to living our natural beauty, our natural love, our natural compassion. We walk in this way, we live in this way everywhere we go, and we still naturally find ourselves in further challenge. Like, doesn't matter where you go, you still continuously experience the challenge, like in a video game, like you have a new boss that you gotta battle or whatever. It's just that you've come to a certain maturity that it's like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, let's deal with it. Let's do what we got to do. I'm on this ride eternally anyways. Right. It's not like I'm going anywhere.
Right.
So I best like make the best of this.
Right. It's just less of a load to carry.
Yeah, it's true.
It's just like, why have this like sometimes I observe people and I'm just like, you're just, if you're 30, you're just carrying one experience after another, like just on top of your back, and like holding it as like justification to, why you're not happy or why you're not where you want to be or whatever it is. And I'm just like, I just want to go and like, that's unnecessary. Like, take that backpack off, like you don't need to wear it, Yeah.
They may enjoy the backpack. Who knows?
Right. Yeah.
It seems like they do. A lot of enjoyment in the backpacks at times, but I mean, that's the reality of it all. Is that it's to each their own, really. Like we each really do have our own choice in the matter in some form, but as each of us awaken, naturally there's a higher responsibility that we carry in bringing that awareness in a non-judgmental and opening and loving way. To all beings that we come across. And that's the greatest service that we can do. That's what I was mentioning to you before, like, like the idea of being a coach or a guide or a teacher. Less and less am I seeing how relevant I really am, in the case of really changing the outcome of someone's journey, we have to take that responsibility even off our own shoulders in that sense, in this, and it's a paradoxical thing because then inevitably that's what impacts more. That's what brings more change. But it's like the true master is the one who sees no one to awaken, and
who sees no one to awaken.
Yeah, like there's nobody to awaken because everyone is the self. Everyone is the manifestation of this godlike truth, and this is what the innocence of the child actually represents. Like it's like it only sees and knows what's just here and alive and happy and happening or not happy, whatever's happening, it's just there. And that's actually the beauty in the innocence, because it doesn't have ideas as to what life is or what's going to happen or what enlightenment is or what universes are or chakras or endless amounts of different things. So we rest in the middle of all that and continue to ride this wave. It's good time. It's good after party. It's juicy talk. This brings out a different type of conversation for me. It's more my
everything with Corey is either juicy or funky.
Juicy or funky.
Or spicy.
Spicy. Spicy is the term. Yes. This is it. So who's still here? I'm really enjoying this after party, and we're going to do this more. 6 people here. Say hello. People tuned. I should have. Well, I didn't know this was going to happen, so I didn't announce it. But now that I know, we're going to do some more after parties, more of these kind of podcasts. I may have other people on, but Ali always brings out the goods. He gets my open ajna just going, just endless concepts. I could weave them, endlessly for. And we didn't even scratch the surface. We talked about we used the term AI God. We didn't get into it.
Right.
Then we talked about. I was going to talk about the lineages of some of these secret societies and the reincarnation of them. We didn't talk about that yet. There's many things we can get into, but it's an endless vortex. So we must do the first session so you get empty and you meditate and do the practice. And then if you want to listen to all the endless concepts of things, then this is what and some mindful jokes, maybe.
Right.
Mindful jokes.
I mean, if it's not fun, then what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like,
poking at our peer-reviewed friends and our hippie friends, you know, either extreme.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So lineages.
Well, I did write this. I did write about this actually in my recent article, "See No Evil." And so for all those watching, some of you may be new. I have a feeling there'll be maybe different people watching because this is a different vibe. Some people don't want the serious meditation; they want the goofy Gemini and Pisces over here.
Yeah.
And
good memory.
Huh?
Good memory.
Yeah,
they remembered I'm a Pisces.
But I did write a really good article called "See No Evil." If I say so myself, the article is quite good. It's on infinitesheikh.com. You can go read it. I can't share my website anymore on Facebook, which is unfortunate, but new website on the way. And so I did speak on in "See No Evil," and I gave a very specific example about. Did you read it?
No.
Okay. Well,
I'll read it.
Good idea.
Yeah.
And but it's a long one. I mean, I only really write long form articles now. That's why my posts are getting less views. So there's you gotta it's like when you have to click continue reading,
right?
And
see more, and it's like
and it loads in another thing. Luckily, I posted a photo that had a good caption. You know, the vagina larynx. Yeah. So everyone on Instagram's lighting it up, but in Instagram I had to post 3 comments to get the whole post in. You know.
Wow.
But I'm telling you, it's useful to read these. So for those that do, like, blessings to you because it's important work.
I'll ask you this: what about those that feel the resistance, maybe to read that much or to?
Yeah, I mean, I can use some better emoticons. Maybe I can space it more.
Right, have
use
it more
better couch phrases.
Right. Okay.
You know, I don't know. Tell them it's worth like $1,000 for free. You know what I mean? Like free training, $1,000. That's probably the best thing I could do. You know, like all this free content that I'm putting out. But
value $1,000. Scratch that.
$1 million. Tony Robbins.
Right.
$1 million program for free. You know, gifted. Pay what you feel. Yeah, so anyways, back to the point. Well, that's a good point. I mean, I do feel like people are not, everyone going to want to read long form. However, I feel the majority of people that are actually starting to read everything that's coming out, they're going to see, the value and read it. Now, See No Evil in the article, I talked about how we truly can practice on seeing no evil in no matter how evil things are arising or how evil things may perceive. Now, this isn't turning a blind eye, and nor is this being like a pushover in a sense that we just don't acknowledge or don't like draw boundaries naturally. You know, it's like if someone's getting hurt or like the most basic of things, then we naturally have a human urge to do something about that. So that's a lot of what's arising right now with all these different, conspiracies, which again is just an invented term to discredit people who are actually researching into deeper mysteries or deeper topics. Though the whole idea around people coming to these ideas of what's happening on this planet and has been happening for a very long time, people are now seeing that they have to do something about it. Like there's a certain anger that arises and a natural response to some of these atrocities. So what I'm not saying is to limit and to suppress your natural urges. Like if I see an animal abuse video, I start crying. It's like it's not like I'm just like, oh, I don't, the tears come. But I very quickly look to not identify with those tears and come to a balance of my senses to know that, well, the only way that someone could commit these actions of such atrocities is because they're holding the equal amount of pain, of if not more, of what they're inflicting.
Right.
Right. And that compassion, the more in which you practice your own purification, it won't, like the tears aren't triggering. It's just tears are coming because you're seeing yourself in pain. But the release of your own judgments is what's also has already been released or is being released. So you're not going to judge and see evil in this other. You see the pain that this other being, like the perpetrator or the person that's causing this harm, is also holding. And in that compassion, this is how we actually, on an energetic level, this is the fastest way in which we can relieve ourselves from quote-unquote evil people or people controlling or people doing wrong things. It's not to put the pitchfork out or to burn them or to do whatever we think we want to do physically. It's to purify that within our own being so that all we can have is compassion, forgiveness, just as much as we have that for the victim as we would for the victimizer or whatever is being perceived. And so the article is all about how that is possible and how we can come to that, and what it looks like and what it's felt like. And, everything we do, all the meditations, everything, is to support that. But a part of the article, I brought a very specific example, which was in the topic of some, common people, people like Bill Gates, and the person I gave the example was Marina Abramovich, who's, she's a, I'm not going to get into too much, but, basically she's an artist, a contemporary artist, whatever, or she calls it art, but many know of her lineage, or her connections to Satanism and basically satanic art, which is not art really at all. It's more symbology of what is actually happening under the surface. So the majority of people that come to this stuff, that aren't ready for that, they just dismiss it because the evil is of such intensity that someone's common mind could not possibly even entertain. Though the reality is that these things occur, and they've been occurring for a very long time. And when you actually start to understand energetic dynamics, you'll understand that the only way for a small group of people to have control of the planet, like the whole conspiracy that everyone couldn't possibly believe, that a small group of 1%ers somehow control the entire planet. This happens not just because of money. That's part of it, but that happens because of energetic principles and energetic laws that they are abiding by that give them that dark energy and that power. And this has been known for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and it was the rituals that are done by these beings have been practiced by many of these different cultures. Mayan culture, Egyptian culture, Celtic culture. There's many different cultures that have done it, that have these histories to them.
They're all these cultures are doing the satanic.
It's not just specifically satanic, but it's there's varying types of rituals that incorporate many different things, inclusive of blood sacrifice as a specific, and other styles. But when we see that in movies, let's say, like the Mayans who would cut someone's head off on the top of the pyramid or something, this isn't fiction. This is exactly what they used to do. Right. And then they also had very advanced societies, and to the idea that we would call them advanced, but it's recognizing that the power that's cultivated in those types of rituals is very dark, but it's extremely powerful. So that energy can be cultivated and used by those who have the control of that energy, or in relation to a certain deity or god or being that they're sacrificing to, because it works on many different levels here. So Mariana's been known in the community that she's heavily involved in a lot of these different things. But I had an experience with her energy. I had never really explored it before, but one night I was just meditating and her energy came to the surface, and I saw, a vision of a very wounded child, a wounded woman, a young woman, which I had perceived to be her, and I just observed this energetic experience of healing that occurred, where it looked like, in a sense, she was released from, she's being released from these traumas, and it was most, gross-looking type of thing that you could experience in a vision, but, it was very much a reality there, and I just observed it. And in that, it helped me write the article because, the article, it came at a time where I was also studying some of the deeper ways in which mind control is done on the collective and on very specific examples, like many famous Hollywood stars and various other people that have been, in a sense, bred to be what is called an MK Ultra slave, or a monarch programmed slave, in a sense, which is basically a mind controlled. They're not even really humans anymore. They are humans, but they're so fractured in their being. That they have an extreme case of multiple personality disorder, which makes someone very susceptible to hypnosis and mind control. So these are very extreme forms of this is a very extreme form of science. The way in which this is carried out is extremely calculated. This is not just like some like fantasy tale, this is like more on the lines of science than it is anything else, because everything is so calculated, and how it's done and what it's done and all these things. But the product is a very damaged being, and a very damaged being is very dangerous, and And in a sense, we all can relate to this in some way because we've all had traumas. We've all experienced traumas that have created different aspects of our experience that have made us dangerous in certain ways. They made us do things that maybe we wouldn't have wanted to in our past or whatever. And so the healing process is coming into a recognition of our own journey, in every respect, so that when we see an example like this of such an extreme case, which most common folk may not even recognize or think, oh, Corey's crazy talking about this or whatever, because it's just so extreme. It's so outside of reality. But anyone who's done any real inner work and coming into themselves, they're going to see that, we all have the possibility to do the ultimate evil or the ultimate good.
Right.
We're a human. We all, every person has that potential. Yeah. It's whether we exercise that or not is going to be different.
There's this psychology professor, Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
He said that with his students, he teaches them, when he teaches them about the Nazis, he teaches them that they could have been the Nazis if they lived in Germany at those times.
Sure, yeah.
So, I mean, the more I recognize, what you're saying is that the more you do the inner work, I mean, sure, there's a lot of blissful moments, but you also recognize your own capacity for evil as well, and just have compassion for that.
That's it. And the litmus test will be to the degree in which you can have compassion for others that demonstrate these things in certain ways. And that was the majority of why I wrote the article, was so that, because so much of it was coming to light for people who had never seen it before. For me, it's been, over a decade I've been involved in these things and researching endless. It's a decade, but it's I've spent, my whole life, integrating all types of topics, reading endless books, and, just coming to such an openness. I still learn endlessly, but such an openness to the fact that literally anything is possible. And when you believe anything is possible in one direction, then that means you have to believe that anything's possible in the other direction. Right. Because one can't come without the other. So, that's where we rest in the middle and we reveal this. But yeah, so I mean, the basics of, we were asking about lineages originally. Many of the beings that are involved in these darker arts and the ritual sacrifice and the controlling measures of this planet have been in these lineages of families for a long period of time. And when we get into soul reincarnation, these beings are reincarnates of previous souls, doing the same things, So it becomes a very complex discussion that it's not just one answer, there's not just one thing, other than it has to stop, and it's going to stop now, we're done. That's all going to end. And then there's going to be there's going to require a lot of healing. But the fundamental wound of everything here is in the Bible, the abomination, which means the ultimate sin, is the harming of a child. Right? So the abomination or the ultimate sin is the way to cultivate ultimate power in the darker ways. And that's, in essence, how it's done. And that's why much of the time we're in right now is a time where, the pedophile rings and the human trafficking and all of these topics are being brought to the surface, because that's the darkest secret of the planet. Right. There's nothing darker than that. And if we can come to grips with that and work the healing through our own, whatever traumas we've individually had in our own childhood and our own experience, because we've had lots of them, any boy who's been circumcised, any premature baby that's been taken away from the mom's arms, countless many of us have experienced sexual trauma, these are all things that we've all individually experienced. So it's not something so far off in some distant land, some fantasy. This is what we're seeing as a mirror of what we've all experienced in our own personal life. Right. So that's where it gets very practical and intimate. It's easy to just turn the eye someone else has handled it or whatever, but it's no, you don't need to be going out and saving the children per se. We leave that to the people that are doing that right now and will continue to. But what we do have to do is the healing work within ourselves, and that just naturally occurs when we start seeing this stuff, because it reveals things within, and we have to do that work. But anyone you don't necessarily need to get into any of that knowledge for you to do this work. Any inward meditation is going to bring you there anyways. Right. It's just what path it takes you, who knows. But my awakening started actually with a lot of these kind of conspiracy topics and stuff like that, Right. You were telling me how you sat your family down. Oh yeah, I use that joke. Well, I use the joke because I see so many people right now starting to share it, and then they're getting the whiplash, or they're getting hit by all this stuff, and but their families and friends, and I'm like, it was literally in 2011. I went to my parents' house and I just watched some documentaries, and I'm like thinking I'm knowing all this stuff. I've been meditating like for like a couple months or something, and I just roll up there. I'm like, I don't have any gifts for anyone. I don't want no gifts. I'm like, I don't eat meat. Actually, no, I don't know if I went vegetarian at that point yet. I was still like, kind of like whatever there, but yeah, I sat everyone down, trying to tell them about like the whole world's like controlled by this Illuminati. I just went into all these things. It was hilarious. And then I got my sister to watch one of the documentaries. Bless her soul, she watched it with me. But it was very, very odd,
right?
Odd Christmas day, Christmas evening, whatever. But we also love each other, and you come to balance. You get into a balance at a certain point.
Well, sometimes there's such a fight back, like
yeah.
You're lucky in a way, you know what I mean?
Well, they thought I was out of my mind, but they're such a loving group that they somehow just
was like, right. Okay, this is Corey being Corey.
You're insane. Yeah. But and likely someone watching this right now may feel that, but I mean,
right? Yeah,
it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
I mean.
Which you? I remember I read a comment for you once. Was it those who have the heart will listen or something like that?
Yeah, the eyes to see and the heart to hear, or the ears to hear and the heart, the heart to feel. I mean, yeah, there's a certain truth to that. You have to have a readiness and a certain openness or willingness to. And sometimes the funny thing is, a lot of times we'll learn things that maybe someone close to us has been teaching or showing us, but because we have that traumatic or that energetic resistance to them because of past, we'll listen to someone else easier. Right. So that's part of the path. We have to go and we hear it, and then we're like, oh, wait a minute. That person was telling me the whole time the same thing. You know what I mean? So then you kind of go back, and I feel actually that's the time we're in right now. Is we're because this quarantine and all that is actually going to limit travel, and it's going to limit a lot of like the travel bug from the whole Instagram culture or whatever. I don't know. Like just travel around and be a nomad, or like all the energies around how cool it is to travel. I feel like that's going to really slow down a lot, obviously because of all this happening. It already has slowed down, and it's not going to. Not like some prophet, like it has slowed down. But what I see actually is that this is the reemergence of the local community, the tribal unit. Like the local tribe and the energies of what's happening. Just in your immediate environment, which is going to bring us back to a lot of relationships of our past. It's going to circle us back to a lot of like childhood relationships if we've lived in a certain area for some time, or people from our past. I feel are going to keep coming back into our sphere because because of that. It's like it's kind of like the idea you've always had what you need. You don't have to run around the world to find your next soulmate or next best friend or something like that. Like the people that you're meant to be around are going to be around you, and they likely already are. So this is what I feel is going to continue to occur in these times, and it's going to bring a real new strength, because that's the way in which all the change is going to happen. Everything has to happen from a grassroots place. Well, it can happen top down, but most of it's going to happen bottom up. Actually, probably it's going to be both. It's probably going to be in the middle, because the top down is useful because that's where a lot of the power is. Right. Illusionary power, and we're still going to use that for a little bit of time. Right. But the real power is actually in the bottom. Because it's the base, it's the foundation. Right. So the grassroots way of like growing our food and barter systems and connected to people, like knowing what's up in your immediate environment, like that's what I feel like so many people are coming to, and why they're like kind of pissed about the whole coronavirus thing in how it's potentially been overblown. Because a lot of people, although we may see some people that are sick, the majority of people are not sick. Right. So the majority of our environment is not in this like catastrophic, apocalypse. Yeah. So if that's our immediate reality, then that's all we can really go by. So it doesn't matter really like what the news is saying. Right. We have to still go by. We listen to that, but we also go by like what's just happening in our moment to moment reality. Right. So this is where I feel like we can actually make real strides. is focus on that for this next little while. It's inevitable. We have to. And we'll see what happens. True. I wish, more people would see that and see the value of direct experience. But, people are at where they're at. Well, with that in mind, for all those watching right now, I know there's still people because I see some comments. Please share this video. is actually, I'll share it, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to put the title because it has no title, so everyone thinks it's just some like whatever, but this is the after party. But we've got into some real juice here. Some real juice. If there's any questions, yeah, everything's being cleansed. Did a 4 to 5 day juice fast last week. Nice, Kelsey. Any comments or questions, anything else that's going on? I want to check the, oh no, that's the same comment. I still like Melissa's comment. What am I watching? I won't take it personally. It's probably just because there's no title, but yeah, this has been great. Thanks, man. Thanks for being here and
yeah, my pleasure, dude.
Facilitating this flow.
Yeah, man. It's just happens. It's
a juicy ride. Yeah, for those that didn't watch the meditation we did before, that I did before, Ali just stumbled upon this great peace room, and now we're here doing this podcast. I feel like we're gonna do these more often. These after party type vibes. I get in a real flow. We both do. I mean, just like just endless topics. I mean, I think I told you about this once before, where when I was talking about how you can read a book by just pulling the energy from it.
Right, by like just putting your hand on it or something.
Yeah, so you can basically do that with anything. Because in reality, if we're connecting to the true source of our being, we are everything. We're omnipresent.
Jeez, can you imagine Chapters getting out of business if everybody can do that?
Chapters, I've loved you for a great amount of time. Actually, just the concept of books. I've loved you for a great amount of time, but I've read one book, I think, this year, or 2 books this year. Maybe 2 or 3. In the past, like, year, not just like 2020, but like, it doesn't happen anymore. But there's just endless, because I have too many epiphanies coming within me. Like, there's too many
There's
insights.
no need.
Right? So that's what I was getting to. As you activate that omnipotence, which we all have access to, and then as we remember it, we are the universe. So the same energy and consciousness that's in the book or in the YouTube video or in the teacher is in you. Like, you are also connected to it. So you can, this is why the idea of like memorizing things and like studying and like taking notes, that can be useful to help come back to this. But in reality, it's actually about relieving yourself of those things so that you can actually exist as that omnipresent, omnipotent, omni-knowing, truth, which has access to everything. So that, yes, you can put your hand on a book and extract the info or whatever. That does take some practice. But the one thing that is a bit more practical is there's something called like photo reading, where I used to do it all the time with big books. Where like you make your eyes go cross-eyed, so when you look at a book you can see 3 pages instead of 2. So you kind of cross your eyes, and then it's almost like it has like 2 folds,
right?
And you basically come into the middle, and then you flip through all the pages, because when you're taking the perfect view to take a snapshot on all the English, all the code of the language, right? So you go through it. There's actually a whole other process. The main process is like, you read the summary, you write questions about what you want to learn from the book, like key insights that you want to take from the book or whatever, and questions that you have. And then you do this process where you go forwards, and then you turn the book around, and you go backwards, upside down.
Oh, wow.
Because when your subconscious, when it looks at language, it picks up only half the code when it's upright, and then takes up the other half of the code when it's the other way. So I used to do this on like huge books, or actually it was better on PDFs because you could do it faster.
Right.
So I would go like, bum, 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 and then I would flip it, and then go, bum, 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 like, and then go through.
And
like,
you just download the information, basically, like to your mind.
Pretty like. So I actually tested it sometimes where I didn't always do it, but I tested it sometimes where I would actually try and recollect knowledge, or I would, because there's another process. It's not just that. It's like you do the questions, you do the photo reading, and then you actually skim through the book, where you just quickly read through. And as you read through, it's almost like you go through this fluid. You almost like dance with the book in a sense, where sometimes you slow down and you start reading, and you read a couple pieces, and then you speed up again, and you keep going through, and then you slow down, and then you keep going. And to be honest, that's how I feel like anyone should go through any information. You don't necessarily need to read a book front to back unless it's some like story or something, because you really are just looking to extract the energies that are present for your vibration at that present time, And so reality works like this already. But so when we make it when we make something too mechanical, we get out of that flow. But when you really are in the flow, like, yeah, you'll just come in and out of wisdom and things, like many of you probably already are, and you extract what you need to do. But I would do that with books, and I would look to recall information, and yeah, I could recall a lot of things.
Wow.
You know, I wouldn't say it's not 100%. They claim it's like 70 to 80. I don't know what my percentage was of anything, but what I do find is that sometimes, you know, when you really get into flows of conversation or whatever, you're just, the insights are just coming. So sometimes you're picking up on things you may have seen, you know, you may skimmed across one day that you never actually consciously recollected, but it's just there, and you're accessing it, you know, and you're pulling in that info and, you know, communicating in whatever way is useful. But that's how I experience it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a cool. It was a cool part of the journey, you know, the photo reading.
Yeah.
I mean, it was perfect for the personal development period because it's all about how many books you've read.
Right.
You know?
How many? Yeah. accumulation.
I just read 100 books in the past week.
Yeah.
Photo read a bunch. But yeah, anyways, it's a good topic.
Yeah, it's funny. Like you in the beginning you accumulate, right?
Yeah.
And then you realize, like, oh, wait, I need to reduce. Like, the more you reduce, the better, right?
Sure.
And it's like, you know, take that with a grain of salt, like everything. But yeah, in this age of information, of thinking like, what's the answer? Let me Google this. Let me do this. Let me It's just too much, you know, and you just gotta cut the shit out.
True.
Yeah. On the topic of the taking notes thing, my jiu-jitsu coach calls it. He's like, look, I just throw a bunch of shit on the wall and see what sticks, right? So because a lot of students were like, well, how are we gonna remember all this? Like, should we get a copybook? He's like, no, you don't need to. I just throw a bunch of shit at the wall and see what sticks. And whatever sticks is what's meant to stick for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%. Especially after a 2-hour after party.
Oh, shit.
I think it's good. I don't know. Where you take what sticks, friends.
Yeah.
I feel like we're going to wrap it up soon. This was really great. Again, share this video. Say something on the comments. This after party had, I'd say, even more potency than the meditation. So I don't know what we're doing right or wrong here, but we're doing it, and we got to get a better camera. That's for one. Though I'm grateful for this camera.
Though it looks pretty clear on the other end. Like when I was watching the meditation. Yeah, well, it looks clearer than what I'm seeing. It looks clear
with good lighting, but now we're like kind of back. We're back here. It's not the most amazing lighting, you know. We already look similar, so they could mistake you for
like
me,
two
and
Corys. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I heard that.
I want to see who else is here. If you are still here, oh, it hasn't been 2 hours. It's been an hour and 20 minutes.
Oh, okay.
That's good. Yeah, well, much love to you folks. We are starting a video podcast. I've had this intention for a while. I actually did the first one. I took it from the Sunday session. So that'll be it. It'll be a mix of conversation. I actually think there's going to be different shows. I'm liking this vibe as more a conversational vibe, but I'm going to have the regular transmission flow of music, sound healing, meditation, teachings, just like coming through like a wave. But this is a different wave.
Yeah.
I like this wave. It's a chilled wave.
It's a fun wave.
And but yeah, this is what it is. So thanks, Ollie.
Yeah,
my
pleasure,
you, friends,
man.
for
Thank you.
Yeah, coming on board here. Again, share this video, and I'm going to watch party this tomorrow because people need to see it. I got to put a title on this with a bunch of topics. Or that's your job.
Right.
You go in and timeline it.
Yeah.
And then we will then we'll put it in the notes.
Right, you do the editing
of the All right. Peace, friends. Good fun.